I'd like to call upon my brother Mendy to share a few words.
Good evening. Thank you all for joining and honoring my father and his legacy. Legacy, it's an odd word for me right now, because to me, my father is not a legacy. My father is an actively accomplished person who has no place leaving a legacy. We are here today to honor just that. On that note, I would like to share the legacy that I live with on a daily basis, which feels more like a few life lessons I happen to acquire. However, it is the greatest gift and privilege that has been bestowed upon me. My father, you see, has left an impression upon me not only today, but every day he and I lived on the same earth. Persistence and perseverance. My father has taught me and shown me through living every day to its fullest in the truthful meaning of these words. Teaching is something that can be explained with words and lessons. But what my father did throughout his lifetime was not just teach, but live, and by being a living example. A dugma chaya for all those around him. He has taught a countless number of people, including myself. You see, when I was in the 7th and 8th grade, past the stage of waking up early with the birds, I was accustomed to sleeping in as late as possible, like most normal youngsters here. Yet every morning I was woken up at the crack of dawn to sit and learn the daily Tanya in depth. Every day, rain or shine, cold or hot, snow or rain, we did so consistently for 2 years. My father not only studied Chassidus and taught Chassidus, but he lived Chassidus with every breath. He lived the chinuch of his children. He practiced what he preached, and he preached what he practiced. My father gave 120%, 100% of the time. There was no exception. Many times, my father gave himself over for a situation that most people wouldn't even expect him to. If a child was having trouble getting into a certain school or paying tuition, one can easily say, it's not my problem. I have my own family, and family comes first. With my father, he made it his priority to do whatever he humanly possibly could to get that child into school, because chinuch was what he lived by. And like I said, he practiced what he preached. Most people succeeded in life by maintaining a specific direction and line of work. My father was one of those few exceptions. He was able to succeed in many different areas through his broad mind and unique way of thinking and exceptional vision. When it was time to be a father, he was a father. When he had to figure out how to buy a building, he bought a building. I will always remember that 4-couple wedding my father spearheaded, pulling people from all different communities and walks of life together, planning a top-of-the-line reception and chuppah for young immigrants to marry in the most dignified and kosher manner. That was an unforgettable event for those there. Somehow my father managed to go from father to rabbi to inventor to builder to wedding planner and a lot more, all in one lifetime. And at the crux of it all, managed to touch those he encountered, preserve Jewish families, and save lives through his devotion to the Rebbe's vision and Hashem's Torah. One important lesson I carry with me throughout my day is the manner in which my father used every moment to its fullest. No matter what the situation or circumstance was, he was alert and ready to do what was needed. One such way that has always stuck with me is by our holiday parties on Pules. It was always a lively and warm atmosphere, which was always a fun perk to have as a kid growing up. After the last of the guests had trickled out, we started to clean up. It was usually just us kids and my parents. My father was the one that was always ahead of the game, and we had to try and keep up. Getting home by midnight would have been a luxury. We would stay until the last bit was cleaned up and the shul was brought back to itself completely. We always begged my father, Tati, can we just finish tomorrow? Can we do the heavy stuff in the morning when it's warmer out? The response I got was usually more or less along these lines. Tomorrow is a new day and there will be new things to do. We don't push off things that can be done today for tomorrow. This reminds me of our Pesach 2 years ago. At the time, my parents were living in a 3-bedroom apartment in Plymouth. Our Pesach was always quite intense, especially the few weeks before when we would dig out all our Pesach equipment and start the rigorous task of preparing the food for the Seder for about 200 or so people. Mind you, making every dish from scratch, as it is our custom in Chabad not to eat any processed foods during Pesach. My father always insisted that we prepare the Seders for others the same way we would for ourselves. As I was saying, 2 years ago, as Pesach got closer, the usual place we used every year had some complications and fell through. So not only were we denied a space to make the Seder, we were also void of our regular Pesach kitchen as well. We were scrambling and decided for the first time ever we would use a caterer to make the Seder food. About a week or two before Pesach, we were able to secure the party room belonging to the apartment building with a capacity of 25 people. We took a gamble and secured the space. Now all we had to do was figure out how would we make Pesach for ourselves in our 3-bedroom apartment. A week before Pesach, my father decided he would have all the Pesach equipment moved out of storage and brought into our apartment to replace the fridge and oven that was there during the rest of the year. A minor hunch. It was against building policy to move or replace the equipment that came with the apartment. Of course, my father had it all worked out. At midnight, a few nights before the big day, we schlepped an industrial fridge, freezer, and oven, along with all of our commercial Pesach shelves, utensils, and equipment. If you ever wondered what a modern-day miracle looked like, this was it. A tiny 3-bedroom apartment was transformed into a full-blown industrial Pesach factory. In addition to all of these drastic changes and space limitations, my brother and his family decided to come in for Pesach, including all of my other siblings besides for one. We canceled the caterer, as obviously was never my father's plan, pulled up our sleeves and got to work. In 3 days' time, Pesach was ready, not just for our family, but for the 2 public starim as well. Getting through that Pesach was by far the most difficult for my father. His health was not up to par, plus the physical task that was endured. He could have easily opted out and said, I'm not up to this right now. Yet he knew that if we hadn't made our Seder, there would be Jews that would not have Pesach, and that was not an option for my father. So he went above and beyond what was humanly possible for someone in his condition and physical state. This exemplified my father's selflessness and commitment to enrich the life of every single Jew. As you can assume, there was a lot more than 25 people in that room that first night of Pesach. My father did not live for himself. He was completely devoted to the Rebbe's shlichus and mission, and that is what he did on a daily basis. His involvement in business was his tool to be able to accomplish this very goal. The countless lives that have been changed is a fleeting number and even seems to be growing as we hear stories and encounters of people who have turned around their lives through my father's impact and special touch. My father's vision of seeing challenges as opportunities was part of his underlying objective and general way in which he conducted himself. On behalf of myself and my family, I thank everyone for joining us in this on my father's first Yahrtzeit tonight.